Warning: the following video may contain spoilers. Continue at your discretion. Thank you.
Hey guys, it's Amateur Critic and welcome to my first video. Against my inner workings, I've chosen The Meg as my first review. Mostly because I like shark movies, but you know, this is a blockbuster and I figured it went to theaters this weekend, so why not? I managed to drag my fiance to go see it with me, and it was surprisingly better than I thought it was going to be, but still not perfect. I'm a little biased towards this movie because I've been watching shark movies since I was 4. They're my passion. I totally love them. But when it comes to this one, it's been neutered by PG-13. The blood is non-existent. The human deaths are pretty dull and not really satisfying. They don't bring any emotional context. You pretty much don't care. If you sit through this movie, you're solely going for the special effects on the actual megalodon, which are cool, but you never really see whenever the shark comes into focus, it always looks smaller than it intends to, and it never really actually gets to, well, I don't really think you actually get to see it destroy a boat, honestly. You just see after effects. A plus of this movie is the international cast, which I was very thrilled to see. You have Chinese actors in there. There's Jason, who's from Britain, Ruby Rose from Australia, and then you have Cliff Curtis and Rainn Wilson from the States. But it was very well casted, and the chemistry between Jason and Lee is amazing. They're really the shining light of this movie, and the actress who plays Lee's daughter in the movie is for once a non-annoying kid in a shark movie. She actually keeps it together more than most of the adults. Overall, it's your basic sci-fi blockbuster. There's not really any thrills. The movie's kind of stays in its safe middle zone. It doesn't go bad enough so that it's actually fun, and it never really gets to the good point where it's enjoyable, so it kind of just stays in that lukewarm spot. Like, once you're I want to say maybe 75% into the movie, you finally get to the I guess the big massacre scene. And if you've ever seen any Jaws 2 Piranha, once the animal makes it to the giant crowd of people, you know you're expecting a thrill ride. And I will say there's probably a spoiler warning in effect right about now. It's once the shark hits the beach, it's pretty dull. It seems more occupied with the weighed down raft things for people to climb on than the actual people. The movie kind of never decides whether the shark is actually after the people, because they're like this big to it, so it eating them makes very little sense because it wouldn't fill them up at all. Yet it seems fine to hunt one single individual person amongst an entire sea of animals. They throw the surprise in that there's 2 megalodons, not 1, but by the time that the first one's dead, you kind of expect there to be another one, so they kind of ruin that surprise for you. If you're an animal rights activist, or you give a shit about animals at all, you'll find it kind of ironic that the movie is set in an underwater research facility among a bunch of scientists, and they make the major discovery of finding an extinct animal which becomes an endangered animal, and they want to kill it again, which my head never really wrapped around that. And the majority of the gore that comes from the movie is seeing whales get kind of butchered by the shark. Well, a mother whale dies and you have to watch the shark eat its baby, which was just heartbreaking alone. And then you're kind of there and watching a bunch of stupid people bomb a humpback whale, and you have to hear its cries in pain, so that was a bit hard to get through. And honestly, by the end of the movie, I felt more sadness for the death of the megalodon than any of the other characters. So it succeeded in making the Meg an actual, I guess, character with empathy. Like, I felt bad for it. Like, they pretty much released it from its natural habitat. They get scared of it because it's a bit big, and then they kill it. So it's pretty, with Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom kind of putting the whole aspect into keeping the dinosaurs alive, I kind of expected it to bleed through to this movie, but it doesn't really show up there at all. It's kind of just going back in the same formula as before. Generally, the overall reviews for the movie are putting it like numerically at around a 50% out of 100, which is not bad considering the cast and the way the movie's filmed. I guess it's kind of set more as in it cares more about raking in the money instead of actually making a quality movie. But the cast is probably the biggest asset it has for those extra points towards the positive side of things. But the worst part about movies that air in the 50 to 60 zone is that they lean they're either good or they're bad, and the Meg is kind of towards the bad end a bit more than the good. It never really finds its place, and it's billed as a sci-fi thriller, and there's tons of sci-fi, not so much thrill. For myself personally, I'm a huge fan of particular actors like Ruby Rose and Li Bingbing were a huge reason I went to see this movie. And the most thrilling part of it that I can remember is there's a scene where Ruby goes into the water, and I was literally just clinging to my fiance hoping that she didn't die. But once the scene was over, I realized that it wasn't that they developed her character enough that I cared if the character itself died. I just liked the actress, and she was kind of carrying the movie a little bit for me. Unsurprisingly to me, with the rise in shark movie popularity, I guess you can consider it more of a resurgence. The movie was a box office success, raking in $44 million domestically and $97 billion internationally. So it's already made back a nice chunk of its budget. So I would expect a sequel to come out within the next little while. In terms of acting, Jason Statham has apparently learned from his roles in Spy and Fast and Furious that, using his comedic side more than his general serious tone, I guess, plays better for him, because he does have some really great scenes with the actress who plays Li Bingbing's daughter. The film does light on the romance. It's filled with cliches and not the good kind. Misaki Awa, I think, the guy from Heroes, I probably butchered his name, but he makes a cameo in the movie. And going into it, unless you know Heroes at all, you won't know it as a cameo, but as soon as something goes wrong in the ship he's in, he starts writing a letter to his wife, so it's pretty much he's signing his death sentence. So that's pretty much the end of his character, even though he had potential to be somewhat interesting. The major, I guess, Jason Statham cliche of the movie is that he's a drunk washed up on a beach, and I remember making this comment to my fiance is like, what movie that Jason Statham stars in is he not a drunk on a beach somewhere? It feels like it's a done to death plot element that just needs to be put to rest. Something that was a bit it took me out of the movie a little bit is that in the initial part of the movie, I guess what drags Jason's character in is that he's a rescue diver and he's going to save a sub filled with 3 people. And it just so happens that the captain of the sub is his ex-wife. And on that very same crew that is responsible for launching the sub is what I'm assuming from the movie is his best friend and the doctor who didn't clear him for further duty. So there's a lot of elements to it that just, it's like, really, I get that this is a sci-fi movie, but like not everything needs to be this obvious or connected, I guess. It takes you out of the plot of the movie, and trust me, the plot of this movie is jumpy enough as it is. It goes from almost one mission to another. At some point it feels like you're watching a series of short films instead of one solid movie. For parts of it, there are some good highlights. The camera work was very well done. The director did the best he could with his rating. He did manage to get a few horror elements into the movie, but the acting still shines as the real product of the movie. The young actress playing the daughter, she shines in every scene that she's in and is one of the few characters in the movie that actually shows genuine emotion. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of Ruby Rose. The role that she plays in the movie should have been developed way more than it was. One huge issue I do have with this movie is that they use the classic African American as comic relief. From that point on, every scene this actor was in was just, it seemed like a waste of his talent. Honestly, the character could have been written far better, and for how huge the cast was, you kind of expected it to be your classic shark movie where the characters get picked off one by one, so you actually start to care. But it wasn't that case at all. To wrap things up, I guess, if you're in the mood for just killing a night at the movies, definitely get popcorn if you're going to sit through this, because you're going to want it. Don't go in there expecting a new Jaws. If you're in the mood for a better shark horror movie, I highly recommend Bait. If you actually want a shark thriller, look up The Shallows. And if you're looking for a movie that is just a bunch of sharks attacking people and you kind of want something that's more bad that it's fun, I highly recommend you watch 47 Meters Down than this movie. But if you're the type that you're in the mood for a genuine action thriller, I highly recommend this, especially if you're a fan of any Jason Statham movie possible. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed the review. Please leave me comments, suggestions, whatever you guys desire. Thanks again. Bye.